the meeting to order. Nice to see everyone virtually. Sorry I can't be there in person today. Up first, we have our consent agenda. Got March 12th minutes as well as the March 17th special meeting minutes. Any discussion around that? Okay, I'll make a motion then to accept the consent agenda. I'll do that by roll. Arlene?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Audrey?
Aye.
And Michelle?
Aye.
And then apologies, I actually realized I neglected to, well, no, that was on the consent agenda. I neglected to ask if anyone had questions about the policy read on collection of delinquent meal charges. Okay, all right. Well, so then that brings us to our recognition of visitors. Emily, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to restate my thoughts that I emailed earlier this week or last week about the 2 o'clock early dismissal that happens each week. I think it's disruptive to families, and I haven't talked to any teachers. I've talked to a handful of teachers. I haven't heard any feedback that it's beneficial. I heard from one person who was not a teacher, but a staff member that thought it was useful for teachers. And I haven't heard anything, I haven't seen any communication about how it's benefiting the students, which should always be the target goal. So I would just like to add families and teachers so that the administration and the board can consider the cost benefit ratio. If there is benefit, then I would appreciate that being communicated to understand how it's benefiting the students, which again should be the bottom line. I had also stated in the email that it's not common. You know, the administration worked hard to get a common calendar to make that easier on families, and this is not a common time or day. So I would just hope that the board and the administration will take that into consideration and take a second look before that's continued. Thanks for listening.
I just clarify a point that you just made, Emily.
Sure.
You said it was not common. Do you mean that people don't, from your perspective, people don't use early release or late start, or that we have not selected a common day to do that across the region?
So as far as I know, there's not a common date to do it. My understanding is that Maple Run does an hour early on Wednesdays. Franklin West does a once monthly early release at 1 o'clock. So that's what I mean by it's not a common.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Lynn, I have a follow-up question on that. I mean, I know that we have already kind of solidified the calendar for the upcoming year, but I'm just curious, Lynn, since we instituted this, have we sought feedback from teachers and building leaders and families, since it was a shift and new in the calendar, to see how generally people are feeling, what they're thinking about it?
We received feedback early on from teachers about needing, like there wasn't enough time to do the meetings that they needed to do. So that was one of the reasons why we shifted in that direction. We've received feedback from leaders. We've not done a formal survey of staff or from families. In terms of the families, I recognize Emily's point about the transportation not going out twice, but we do offer some after school, we do offer care until the end of the day. So we tried to work around that, solving for that for families. We could do a survey. We also could do a board report on that I would assume that would go to the SU board, so that you could hear how that time is being used, because that time is absolutely being used in schools to have teacher teams meeting, talking about, they're used in a variety of different ways in a variety of different schools. the teams are meeting to talk about where students are in the learning progression in some of those schools and in some of those meetings, and talking about what instructional practices they're going to agree upon, to try to move them along the continuum. There are PLC team meetings that happen, there are staff meetings, there's professional learning that has been able to happen really regularly this year around our new literacy program. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into how we utilize that time, because we're so limited with the amount of time that we have our staff members. So we're able to go deeper and have, we're able to be more strategic in how we utilize that time with our teachers. So we could do a fuller report to the SU board if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, I would be interested in that. And Lynn, I guess, right, that it's the SU board that votes, right, on the calendar, or do we do that at the NMV level as far as when you presented the calendar?
SU board.
Okay, well, so then that makes sense then. I would be interested to dig into that a little bit. Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much. And there's no one else for public comment at this time, correct?
Nope, nobody else.
Okay, great. So that brings us to Gavin with the Berkshire School Spotlight.
That transition every time always gets me. It's like, oh, I'm in. So, I wanted to talk a little bit. I actually wanted to deviate a little bit because I know the past few presentations I've given to the board have been very, very data focused on academic data, which of course is always going to be one of our main priorities. However, I actually wanted to take a little bit of a deviation, talk a little bit about some of the more qualitative experiences we've been working on, and probably one of the biggest pillars that we've really devoted a lot of focus to supporting our students has been outreach to the community and really building relationships with families. Even Mark Hattie, and I don't have the exact statistic on me, so you'll have to forgive me, but even Mark Hattie, in a lot of his work on researching instructional effectiveness, has oftentimes found that parent engagement and community engagement is one of the more underutilized resources from educators across the board. And so I wanted to share a little bit about our Winterlude event that I know I've spoken to the board briefly about over the past couple of sessions, as well as some additional work that we've been doing to re-engage the community. Next slide, please. So, when I first was pitching this idea to the faculty and the staff, I stated that one of the biggest things was that the ARIES, or the UARIES, are difficult. And when I say that, I mean January and February. Those are typically very, very tough months for our students, for our parents, for our community, for our faculty and staff. And a lot of it is just, it's cold, it's dark, and a lot of times it's also following some of those bigger holidays that many families celebrate. And sometimes even financially, they sometimes sort of overextend themselves and have to sort of take the next 2 months to really recoup. And of course, all of that adds stress. So what I wanted to do was really provide something that all of us could look forward to during those cold, dark months, and also sort of create a cultural event for the school that could continue on going forward as well, just to add a little bit of joy to the school year for everyone involved, including or especially our students. In addition to that, there were a couple of natural opportunities that sort of stated that this could be a great opportunity to further strengthen our community. One of the biggest ones was this past year we've been excited to welcome a teacher from the Philippines under the J1 visa program to come and teach at our school. And part of her requirements for being here in the States as a teacher in the public school system is to provide some kind of cultural event to students. So we already knew that she was going to need to do this work anyhow to satisfy the components of her visa. So the thought said, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it right and let's make it significant. In addition to that, one of the big things that we've been really working on with the Berkshire community in general has been appreciation and acknowledgement of the rich diversity that is within our community, as a chance for us to grow as individuals as well. Next slide. And so we came upon this idea of Winterlude, and Winterlude is actually a holiday that's celebrated throughout the world. In Canada and with the Abenaki tribe, it's typically a focus on a lot of winter activities. One of my favorite comedians mentioned, the Canadians are crazy. They choose the coldest time of the year to say, hey, let's go outdoors for a festival. In Europe, and this is where I first learned about this because my wife is from Hungary, it involves scaring off the winter. So towards the end of the winter months, you need to do something that's going to scare off the winter and bring in the warm weather, kind of like how in America we celebrate Groundhog's Day. And so with that, it was, that involves a lot of times mask making, going outside with noisemakers, and then something that I learned through this process that my wife had never told me, jumping over a bonfire as well, which we actually did. And as Lynn's like, I'm gonna have to talk to him after today's meeting. And that's sort of like crossing the threshold, once again, from the cold months to the warm months.
Let's clarify the bonfire thing for those watching at home. Was not a real bonfire.
Yeah, I actually have a photo to prove to you that I did not build a bonfire in the gym and jump over it. At least not yet. We also had some additional, thank you for laughing at my corny jokes as well. We also had some support from an organization called Starling Collaborative, which works on restorative practices. We've worked with them historically in the past, and they actually, I partnered with Jessica Villeneuve from Starling Collaborative, and she was able to also help me with planning, and also with making some connections with the Abenaki tribe as well. Next slide. And so on Friday, February 21st, it was an all-day event. And students were grouped according to their flock groups. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with flock groups, periodically throughout the year, we try to do multi-aged morning meetings. So students in older grades are paired with students in younger grades. And teachers from across the school, everyone gets assigned a flock group, and they work on building SEL skills together. And it provides some interesting opportunities, mentorship for our older students, as well as really being able to explore SEL concepts from multi-age groups and seeing it through different lenses as well. And it also provides our students also with opportunities to work with teachers that they wouldn't necessarily normally work with. And overall, it has the effect of just, once again, strengthening the community and building familiarity across the community as well. And so we developed a number of stations. And once again, these stations were meant to celebrate Vermont culture, Native American culture, and then culture across the world as well. And so we had activities such as Sugar on Snow. Originally we were going to build snowmen, but I learned the hard way that there is a minimum temperature that you have to be able to build snowmen. Otherwise, you get snow creatures, which is what we developed. And really what that ended up turning into was snow forts and snow tunnels and very cold feet. We also had different snow games, sledding. We had at different points just snack breaks. We had sort of a break room, which was just board games and just a chance to just come in from the cold. We had probably one of the most exciting aspects was the World Cultures Gallery Walk, where our 6th graders developed, basically they devoted about 2 weeks in the lead up to the event. They chose a country, they researched the country, and they created trifolds, and then we created a multicultural gallery walk museum, essentially, that students were able to see, to look at the hard work that they had done. In addition to that, we also had our teacher from the Philippines do a brief presentation of her experience, or what life is like in the Philippines, how it differs from Vermont, a lot of common similarities. And we also invited a parent to our to participate as well. She grew up in the United States, but on the West Coast, off the coast of Oakland and San Francisco, and she had lived on a houseboat for the first few years of her life. And so she was even able to talk a little bit about how there's diversity even within the country and how people live their lives. In addition to that, we had the members of the Abenaki community come out. We had a drumming ceremony right in this library where there were different types of folk songs and and different types of drumming ceremonies to celebrate different aspects of Abenaki life. In addition to that, we had snow snakes that the Abenaki tribe members also showed us how to basically play snow snakes and the purpose behind the game. In addition to that, we also had my wife was originally going to be there. Unfortunately, she was sick, so we made a video of her talking a little bit about Winterlude in Hungary, including mask making and jumping over the fire. And so our students worked with our art teacher to basically build masks that they could use then at the very end to scare off the winter. And then it ended once again with a final whole staff or whole campus assembly, and then that final part, which was us going outside and basically turning to the sky, wearing our masks, and being as loud as we could to bring in the warm weather. Next slide. While this was happening, because I never like to do things simply, we also had points where we wanted to make sure there was a celebration for our staff members. So we were able to have Hannafords graciously donate several platters for sandwich making, so we could treat them to a lunch of their own while Miss Paquette, myself, and a few others braved the cold and did recess duty for them. And then we even were able to work with a local massage parlor that was actually able to donate some massages to our staff members as well. So once again, it was community building, it was acknowledging and celebrating diversity, but it was also a chance to celebrate and build and basically celebrate the staff as well for the hard work that they've put in. Next slide. I wanted to show you just a number of pictures of what's happening in these different photos. You can see a few times where we're looking at where we had created the snow snake paths, and two members of the tribe were showing students how to participate in this game. This was our snow fort creation, where we ended up with a pretty intricate series of tunnels from our students, and then once again our outdoor games. What you're looking at right now is this was our station for making sugar on snow. Once again, some additional snow snakes. And this was the multicultural gallery walk that our students created as well, where students were able to move in as stations and learn about different nations of the world. Next slide. This is Miss Stewart, the parent volunteer who came in to discuss her life living on houseboat off the coast of California. This is Miss Mika, who was delivering her presentation about what life was like in the Philippines. This is the member of the Abenaki tribe who was participating in the drumming ceremony. This person here is myself jumping over what clearly is not a real bonfire. Every student did this when they were making masks. Mr. Connor, our art teacher, had worked with some students to develop it, so to build it, he had the students, once they made their masks, jump over, and at the very end when we gathered in, they asked me to charge the fire and jump over it, which I did, and I did not trip or split my pants, which was a huge success and relief for everyone. And then finally, you can see just the fun we had. We finally got out and stared up at the sky and yelled. And I will tell you, the teachers yelled just as loudly, if not louder, at the sky, trying to get rid of the winter and bring in the spring, because we were all ready. And one student later said, Mr. Roddy, you said we were trying to scare off the winter, but it's literally, as soon as we yelled up at the sky, it started snowing. Our literacy interventionist, Miss McFadden, said, well, that was spring snow. Next slide. Now, in addition to Winterlude, which was a huge success and something that everyone, even the teachers who initially were a little worried, because it was a very big deviation from a normal schedule. There were a lot of moving pieces, enough to keep me up quite a few nights looking and re-looking at the schedule. Even the teachers who initially were worried were like, this went really well, we need to do this again next year. I know one of the things that I have discussed is now that we've built it, ideally we could turn it over to one of our school improvement teams, the one that focuses on community events. And already some teachers were talking about different themes. Next year I know is going to be the Winter Olympics, and so our PE coach was like, next year we should focus on winter sports and have like actual Olympic games outside. We've talked about some other different ways as well, like the winter in science, winter in the arts, just to find different ways to once again celebrate this time of year, but also find different ways to engage our students and help once again tie it into also SEL and real life learning as well. In addition to that, our community outreach school improvement team has worked very hard to really start getting the ball rolling on re-engaging the community. One of the things that stuck with me when I was first interviewing for the position of Berkshire was one of our longtime teachers who was sort of explaining to me like, okay, Mr. Ruddy, you're coming from Tucson, Arizona, you're moving into a very, very different community. And one of the teachers looks and goes, you understand, Berkshire does not have a town center. In the past, it has always been the school. And then she almost wistfully said, well, it used to be until COVID. And so I think a lot of us have felt that impact. COVID really, and it's not just at Berkshire, but across the country, COVID, there were a lot of long-term ramifications for COVID. And one of the big ones was it did cause a pretty big gulf between the community and the schools, just because there was a period of a few years where we just could not bring families and communities into the school in the same way. And sadly, some of that has never quite returned. And so I remember even saying then and there, like, that would be one of my missions, is to try to turn that around. And so this year, I feel like we've really started to get traction on that. And so right after Winterlude, our community outreach team implemented a passport challenge for during that midwinter break. Students would have passports from different local businesses throughout the community, where if they did certain academic tasks, they could show up and they could get something, whether it's a free cookie or some other kind of fun activity to keep students engaged in the community. And we had a number of students staying very, very busy during that time, working towards that passport challenge. And I know quite a few other schools have implemented that in recent years as well. In addition to that, we had a bingo fundraiser, partially to help fund the passport challenge. And the turnout was so big that we ended up raising more than enough to cover the passport challenge. And so that community outreach team now is going to use that money that was raised to once again help promote other community events as well, to bring families back in. In addition to that, we have an upcoming egg hunt, and we also have the next community outreach event is going to be a painting workshop and breakfast. So if there's anyone who's artistically inclined, please come and join us for French toast and painting. I'm pretty sure that's what Van Gogh used to eat anytime he made a painting. Finally, one thing that has not changed, that has continued, is our yearly ski trips as well, which have continued to draw a large number of students to the slopes, and has been a huge, huge motivator for our students to continue to making sure that they're keeping up with academics and also demonstrating acceptable behavior as well. Next slide.
That's it.
That is it. Perfect. So thank you very much. I can take any questions. Otherwise, I really appreciate the board's time.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Gavin.
Thanks, Gavin.
It's fun to see how the pictures of the kids interacting and doing the activities during the interlude. It's good to see the community events back too.
Yes, that's been one of my favorite parts this year.
Gavin, thank you so much. That was really lovely to see. What an amazing opportunity the school community had. So moving on, we have Morgan with the financial business report.
I do not have anything for your current year budget. That's just a placeholder on your agenda. In terms of the Berkshire Boiler project, we did go out to bid for that work. We received 2 bids back from the 2 that we expected. It was Lime Green Heat, which is the company that put the boiler in at Richford High School last year, and Pellergy was the second bidder. We got some guidance from the AOE that we don't have to go through the same waiver process that we have in the past. So I will not be asking you for a motion on that. But if you are so inclined to move forward with this, we would recommend that you direct me to negotiate a contract with Lime Green Heat, which was the low bidder and the one that that we've worked with in the past in Richford.
And you need a motion on that, Morgan?
Yep, a motion to negotiate a contract with Lime Green Heat. For the,
Okay, and is that separate from this piece where you're talking about we need to specify capital reserve fund?
yeah, we'll do
Or-
that as a separate motion.
Okay. All right, well, I'll make that motion to enter into a contract with Lime Green Heat. We'll do that by roll. Arlene,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Audrey,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Mary's and I.
And then the second motion would be looking for authority to use capital reserve funds for that project if needed. Berkshire still has a relatively large capital reserve fund tied specifically to this building, so we would likely tap that. Although if we are able to do any work before June 30th and get that in the current general fund budget, we would do that.
So Morgan, do you anticipate that this will deplete to zero the fund that Berkshire brought to the merger with Act 46?
Yes, I do.
And then we'll need additional funds above and beyond that.
Right.
And if it's before the date in June, it'll come from the general fund, but if it's after, you're talking about capital reserve, or is that separate?
So anything that any expense we get before the end of June that we can fit into the general fund, we will do that. If I don't anticipate we're going to be able to get a lot going just because of end of the school year, but we will try to tap what we can out of this general fund if we have it.
I guess I'm just not understanding the capital reserve fund. Are you talking about the NMV capital reserve fund or the fund that Berkshire brought to the table prior to merger?
So I think the motion could cover both. You could restrict it if you wanted to, but my recommendation would be you just leave that open-ended, and we're going to use the most restrictive money first, which is the Berkshire specific fund.
Okay, so what's the best wording then to encapsulate all of that?
Grant authority to use capital reserve funds as needed for the Berkshire wood chip boiler project.
Okay. Any discussion about that from the board?
I don't have anything for discussion, but just a reminder that we have received how much in grant funding for this?
Vern secured $200,000 grant for the it's a Vermont forestry grant, and then we're also anticipating that we will get a grant from Efficiency Vermont that will likely come right at the end of the project.
We got a similar grant in Richford from Efficiency Vermont. I believe that one was for $60,000. So we're hoping it will be substantial for this project as well.
Yeah, that's excellent. Vern is really savvy at finding all those great grants, so
Definitely.
that's nice. Okay, so I'll make that motion then to grant you the authority to use capital reserve funds as needed to fund the boiler project. Do that by roll. Arlene,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Audrey,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
and Mary's and I.
So we had also hoped to bring you bids for the Sheldon boiler project. We had a site meeting. Vern tells me they had 2 contractors show up. One declined to bid on the project. The other said that they would be interested in bidding on it, but they were not going to have a bid in by the bid's due date. So we are in a bit of a holding pattern there. We're going to see if this other bid does come in, and look at that price and decide if we need to revise the scope and go out to bid again, or if there's another option out there. Sheldon's building is heated by steam rather than hot water, which is a kind of a bit of an anomaly in this day and age. The proposal, the RFP that we put out would have converted everything to hot water instead of steam. If when we get that bid, we decide that we should instead rebid it, just replacing the boiler and not kind of replacing the guts of the system, we may do that and bring that to you in the future.
So it's just sheer coincidence that these aging boilers are going at the same time in Berkshire and in Sheldon. How old are these boiler systems, Morgan?
They're 40 years, somewhere in there.
When I started here in Berkshire in 2006, they said the boilers need to be replaced, and we still have not replaced them. So they've been living
Yeah.
along
My
since
goodness.
then.
I think it's not a coincidence. We had a kind of a big building boom in Vermont all at one time, and we know that deferred maintenance is a big issue for many of our schools.
Yeah.
So we're sort of all getting that bill now.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense for sure. So Morgan, you need a motion also on the Sheldon boiler, or not yet? Because
Nope,
you don't
that's
really
just
have
an
any firm numbers.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the only other update I have is around the PCBs in Berkshire. There was the consultant that we've hired has done some additional testing. They're drafting their final report and action plan. When they have that action plan in place, that goes to the Department of DEC, Environmental Conservation. They get to weigh in on it. And hopefully we will have an approved remediation and reoccupation plan to bring back to you. This is all stuff that is no longer grant funded by the state, but we are sort of going through all the steps, hoping that at some point in the future the legislature will put more money into that fund, and we'll be able to go back at that fund with our past receipts. So hopefully at your next meeting we'll have a coherent plan that we can share with you that's approved by the folks who get to approve it.
Great. Thanks, Morgan. Is that it for you tonight?
That's all I have. I will hop in with Lynn on the legislative update.
Perfect. All right. Lynn, you're up.
Okay. Just wanted to note. Okay. So I'll start off with a personnel report. So we're right in the middle of our, we're kind of beginning our hiring season. Our contracts have just gone out to our teachers. We're expecting by the middle of April to have some information about who will be returning. We have a number of teachers that have asked for extensions, so we would know on those contracts by the beginning of May. So we're hoping to move forward, because the longer we wait, the more depleted the candidate pool gets. So when we know that people are leaving, we will advertise right away to try to give our students the greatest benefit of having candidates. So in terms of hiring, Sadie Callan has been hired at Bakersfield to be the grade 1 teacher. So I don't know why
I
that's
think
a Sadie
that's
Callan. That's a
Berkshire.
I believe her name is Allie Bliss.
No, I think.
Sadie Callan is for Berkshire.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the wrong line.
Yeah.
I read that out
Is it
loud and I'm like,
Black
that's
Boiler
wrong.
first grade?
Is it grade 1?
It's grade 1.
Okay. I stand corrected. Sadie Callan, grade 1, Berkshire. And did we bring Allie Bliss last time?
Yes.
Okay. So that is the only action item you have. There's informational Todd Larrabee, that will be the head custodian in Montgomery beginning, for the next school year. So I'd ask for the board to make a motion to approve Sadie Cowan, in Berkshire.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Emily. We'll do that by roll. Arlene?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Audrey?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Mary's an aye.
Okay, so we have some resignations that I will ask you to approve. So in Bakersfield, we have Sean McLaughlin Dubois. He is our middle school social studies teacher, and Lilith Blackwell, middle school ELA. In Montgomery, Katie Belval, grade 3 teacher, and Ellen Libby, grade 2 teacher. So I'd ask the board to make a motion to approve those resignations.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. We'll do that by roll. Arlene?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Audrey?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Lisa? Aye. Mary is an aye.
You have several positions that we know of that are open. Some are current and some are for next year. So in Bakersfield, a preschool paraeducator, grade 5, middle school ELA. I think this is wrong. Grade 1.
So that's filled, and we're not filling grade 5.
Okay. So middle school ELA
That's it.
and the others are filled.
Yep.
So this is the danger of doing any sort of hiring report, because things move so fast this time of the year. They're changing every single day. So Berkshire, Gavin, is yours still correct?
It is, we've still kept the paraeducator open, however, at this time, we're only hiring based on needs of assignments.
Okay. So halftime health teacher, paraeducator, and middle school baseball coach in Montgomery. Sandy, is that still correct for you?
Yes, well, yes, right now.
Kind
but
of.
I'm right on.
She's close.
cusp.
One of those is hopefully going to be
Just
filled really closely.
Waiting for the acceptance.
Okay. Grade 1 teacher.
Grade 1 might be filled.
In grade 4-5 ELA global citizenship. And in Sheldon, math interventionist for now. And we've got some additional ones that are, some resignations have come in late, so we'll be looking for some other positions there. Was that correct, or do you have anything to add?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
So as I already said, the contracts have gone out to our teachers. I don't have anything else under personnel.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are these positions the ones that we struck from different places because we found people and filled them? Or that we're no longer filling certain ones?
Can you say that one more time?
Are there some of these positions because we've decided not to fill them, or because we found people to fill them?
So some positions we're not filling, and some positions have already been filled. So, let me talk about that, that's
Okay.
a good question. So, we're gonna talk a little bit about a legislative update. And one of the things that is being pretty consistently talked about in the legislature is class size. And I think that it's clear to anyone who's following this that the cost of education in Vermont is something that's really in the spotlight. And there's big pressure to look at how do we save money within the education system. So one mechanism, and we'll talk about, is about district size, school size, class size, and how we fund it, along with some other things. So the class size thing, there is pretty consistent expectation that we'll end up with a minimum class size expectation in policy that will force schools to get closer to scale, so that they can be educating students in a more cost-effective way, but also by getting closer to scale, you may be able to offer more enriching things to kids when you have more students that you're serving, is the idea behind including that in there. So we know this is coming, in both the governor's plan that he had originally proposed and the plan that the House Education Committee had proposed. Going live with those class sizes will not be for the 25-26 school year, but we believe right now in that language it'll be for the 26-27 school year. So we could approach this in two ways. We can ignore that that's happening and refill everything we have, and then at this time next year we'll be having to be responsive and make big changes, or we can take some steps towards that now, which is what our leadership team has decided to do. So we're looking at our class sizes that we currently have, and where it makes sense, we're having conversations about, is this, especially at the middle high school level, is this something that, you know, does this class need to be split, or can this class remain together? Or do we offer this one class with 6 students in it, or do we merge these two classes together and get to 15, right? So we're having a lot of conversations like that, and we're finding that there are places where we don't have to refill positions because we can make some adjustments. So we're getting closer to what those class size expectations will be, and we're using attrition to get there.
So we're also looking at the same time of, like small schools, I mean, all of our schools, a lot of them don't meet that minimum number. So we'll have to look at different configurations of class groupings, as far as, these are our first graders, these are our second graders, these are our third graders.
Potentially.
Yeah.
There is in the House bill, they don't want schools just saying, well, we can meet minimum class size, but we're gonna offer a 1, 2, 3 together. They want no more than 2 grades together. So there will be schools in Vermont that even with putting 2 grades together, will not be able to meet the minimums, so. We're just
Our
taking a
schools though
step.
are probably not in that.
We're pretty close on the class sizes in a lot of
Yeah.
places. But there are places where we can tighten up a little bit
Oh, yeah.
and make a shift here or make a shift there, and I think it's a better practice to take that step proactively towards it than have to make big changes that will be felt significantly, and then we'll have to reduce positions. So we're just this year using attrition where we can to get closer to that.
And I think we just better, one thing to cautionary is to make sure we're really good about letting our community know where it's coming from and why.
Sure.
That this is coming
Yeah.
down the pipe, so, yeah,
That's a good point.
so that they know ahead.
We have been trying to release information periodically about where this has been. We're trying to do it through our newsletters, and talked about it in our budget meetings, just to help people to understand, but it's changing so rapidly. I hear you, and I think that I'll need to do some more regular.
Well, and somehow, you know, we're not getting, those things aren't read by the people that we need to read them, sadly, you know. So how we do, maybe some of the things that, like Gavin's doing, to pull the community in, like when we did the presentation and the, together, so you got the captive audience, you grab them and, you know, give it to them.
Yeah. Makes sense. And the next slide. So, we received a request for, Morgan, I think you need to describe this one because I might not have the detail correct.
Sure. So, we have a parent who is a Montgomery resident, or will be a Montgomery resident this summer. Has 2 kids who have been accepted to the Holderness School in New Hampshire. What we have done in the past, I think at the NMV board, certainly with the individual boards that predated it, is when we had a request for a school that was not on the Vermont independent schools list, bring it to the board. The board has the ability to approve a school, I think it's meeting education standards, and that's a poorly defined rubric, I guess. But it's really the only guidance that you get in statute. What we have done in the past is looked at those schools for some evidence that they have accreditation from NEASC, or an outside agency that goes in and monitors their performance. This is one that does have NEASC accreditation, and so it is, it was linked in your board packet, and it's one where if you choose to be consistent with past practice, you would name it as an approved school to receive tuition. It would only receive the average Vermont public high school tuition amount, which is, I think, around 20,000 now. And this may all change with the bill that the House has working through the system now. And I have alerted the parents to that fact that, you know, the board can take action one way or the other. If the board approves it, the legislature may still take it away. But in past, we have brought these to you because the parents themselves have to commit at some point to this school, and obviously don't want to do that if they don't really know what the financial package is going to be.
Do we know if this parent has a timeline, like an established timeline that's gonna happen before the next board meeting?
Timeline, like
Having to decide.
I don't know if they, yeah, I know.
So
Morgan, I'm having a bit of a hard time following. I don't know if it's the speakers on my end or your end. So Holderness is, you know, in line with other private schools that we have sent NMV tuition to. At the moment, NMV still has school choice. It sounds as though, Morgan, you said something about how the state may be changing that for the school choice. I mean, I assume that any of our students who are currently enrolled and for whom we are currently paying tuition will be, you know, grandfathered in, so to speak, if there are any changes at the legislature. But you're saying there could be changes at the legislation level that would disallow anyone currently this year contemplating private school choice starting fall of 2025?
So, sort of. This is in the House bill that we're going to be going over in a little bit. And the change that they're contemplating at the moment would take place on July 1 of 2025, so it would impact the school year. There is a grandfather provision so that anyone who was in a school in the 2024-2025 school year would be allowed to complete their high school years and still receive that tuition payment. Going forward, it would, the short story is that it would restrict tuition for new kids only to public schools outside of Vermont or private schools within Vermont that meet certain criteria. So that would knock out the Stansteads, and it would knock out schools like Holderness that are both private and out of state. The grandfathering around folks who are in the position that these folks are is a little bit vague because they talk about having an acceptance for the 25-26 school year, which I believe this family could produce. So I think, as written, as I interpret it, the tuition payments would still follow them, but this is really a matter of changing one word in a bill that has a long way to go in the legislature. So I've told them that they need to pay attention to that. Does that answer the question?
Right. Yeah, that's very helpful. I understand that. I mean, that's a little challenging for any of our families that are potentially contemplating a similar school choice, private school arrangement, but we'll just have to stay attuned to that and let them know that, you know, if the board does approve this, if there seems to be some risk that it could not go in their favor from the legislation end of things.
Correct. And again, as it's currently written, as I interpret it, if you spent your 9th grade in a private school last year, you're going to be able to continue until you graduate in that school.
Right, but it's just a little challenging for our families in the moment, because this time of year, this April, May, this is when if you are choosing that private school path, this is when you're signing contracts and putting down a deposit and, you know, all of those kinds of things. So that's challenging for this, you know, I know there are not many of them, but for those families for whom this is the path, they're choosing for their students to start in the fall of 2025. That's tricky for them for sure. But any discussion from the board about this particular school or anything related to this request?
Is there not a
Sorry, I guess I don't know how to raise my hand on this new platform. Oh, there it is.
We're all trying to learn it too, Lisa. It's not as intuitive.
What's up, Lisa?
I just wanted to say that I think we should, as Morgan said, whatever this bill is in the House is one of several bills in the House and Senate. So this is not the bill that's guaranteed that's going to be going anywhere, and it certainly isn't going to look like this when it comes out at the end. So I think we have done our due diligence by Morgan telling the family that this is a possibility, and I think we should act on our current policy, which is to, if a school is approved, then we would approve the sending of these students to that school. Nothing has changed, and it won't change until it's signed on the dotted line. So I don't think we can be projecting into the future like, oh, you know, we shouldn't do this because it's all going to change. It's not just going to change for that family, it's going to change for several families if it changes. And there's also bills coming from the Senate, or that the Senate has, and they have their own ideas about how to define what an independent school is that would be funded by public taxpayer dollars. So there is a long way to go on this, and you know, just because I'm kind of living and breathing both sides of it right now, I think we should proceed with what we would typically do if this unknown weren't hanging over our heads.
So I will say, from looking at their website, they do meet, as Morgan said, the NEASC accreditation. They're listed on the NEASC site. And to just speak about their parents' timeline, I looked online and it looks like on April 10th, parents have to notify holderness of their decision. So it is timely. There was a piece of me that thought, well, maybe you should have me bring this back in May, but I don't, to Lisa's point, think that you'll know, you won't be any closer in May to knowing where this is gonna land. You aren't gonna know until June, most likely. So, yeah, teachers.
I was just gonna say, I feel like as a parent who, like if I were the parent in this particular situation, I think laying it out flat and then saying, have a contingency plan ready to go for a comparable in Vermont that meets those standards, because I think that what we're all saying is it looks like it's a possibility it's not going to go forward. So I would want to know that it could go either way, and what's the safest bet for my kid to start a school year and stay there.
I think that Morgan has done his due diligence on that, and making sure that they understand that there's some, you know, potential for this, and maybe we can, in the notification back to them, just say that, you know, the board is approving this. And at the same time, as we've discussed, if there's a change to the legislative process, we'll have to follow whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah, and that's clearly not in your lane, that legislative piece of it. You will not find two people more interested in stopping the flow of taxpayer dollars out of the state, but I also think that there's risk to you to have some criteria and then deny something like this where you've approved similar schools in the past.
In the contract from Holderness, I'm assuming it's a year to year, right? Haven't seen it.
Don't know. We don't pay the we would just get a bill for that tuition amount, and I would make sure that it's
So the parents
Going-
sign the agreement.
right. Yeah.
So we're not privy to the agreement.
No.
We
would-
just pay.
We would get an invoice and we'd make sure that we're only
Pay a
paying
ton of money
tuition.
without reading the contract.
And just get it to Montgomery.
They will.
That's,
Especially being out of
Any
state.
other discussion, or, I would like to make a motion then to, support their request for the tuition to Holderness, since, as Lisa eloquently said, it's the precedent, it's our policy at the moment, and we can't make decisions based on unknown future legislation when there's so much pending coming from Montpelier. So, I'm in support of, the request. We'll do that by roll. Arlene,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
John, Audrey,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
and Mary is an aye. And Morgan, when you get back to that family with the board's decision, sorry, again, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing everyone. You'll make sure that they understand this potential.
Yes, we've already had that
Situation
conversation.
coming from Montpelier.
I've already had that conversation with them, so yes, and I will reiterate that.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, so now we keep finding ourselves in our conversations tonight heading into this anyway, so we're going to at this time jump into our legislative update. Morgan, as I'm looking at this, I'm wondering if, it would be, do we wanna talk about the governance piece, or do we wanna show the visual for those? Is there any utility in doing?
I think we can talk broadly about this.
All right, I'll jump in and then you
Okay.
you add to it. So we'll start with governance. So to what Lisa said, it's really fluid. There's a lot of things going on at the legislature right now. So we've already talked about this at board meetings. What our current governance structure looks like is we have 52 supervisory unions or supervisory districts. Our supervisory union, we can't be a supervisory district because we have 2 districts. So we have an NMV school district and an ER school district, okay? 119 school districts in the state. So the governor's proposal that was released, the idea of it released in January, the bill related to it was released in late February. His proposal was gonna bring that 52 down to 5, ranging in size from just over 10,000 to just under 35,000. In that plan, we would have been placed in the Champlain Valley region that would have covered Richford to Shoreham, okay? So the House has a bill that is moving through the House. It's just gone over to House Ways and Means, the House Education Committee, who started with their bill. Where they landed in their bill is that they do not want to rush the drawing of the lines because they feel like it's a big deal to draw those lines, and they want to make sure that it's a really thoughtful process, and they want to make sure that they can get that piece right. So in that bill, they have language that creates a school district boundary subcommittee, which would be an offshoot of the Commission on the Future of Public Education, and their task would be to draw options for new district lines with an average of 4,000 students in each of those districts. And their charge would be to present those options back to the legislature in January of 2026. And then there is, as Lisa said, there's different thinking happening on the Senate side. So on the Senate side, there is not a bill, but there is I don't know what you would call Senator Baumgart's
Plan.
So it's a couple pages and a couple of maps that Senator Bongartz has been talking about in Senate Education. In that plan, it would take us from the 52 school districts or supervisory districts or supervisory unions in Vermont to 9. And you would have 3 of those as supervisory unions and 6 of those as school districts. So in that plan, we would be in a system that would essentially be the whole northern border of Vermont, except for the furthest Northeast Kingdom group. So it would be from Alberg to Brighton, essentially. So it would be, Alberg would be taken up, like right now there's the Grand Isle Supervisory Union, Alberg, the Missisquoi Valley, I think Maple Run, us, all the way over through the North Country district, so that whole northern part. So in this plan, one of the pieces that they're really just focusing on the governance piece, and which is a little confusing to me, and maybe their plan is to respond to the House bill, but I think that the governance piece is not going to save the amount of money that they think it's going to save, because when you look at the totality of what it costs to operate like our central offices across the state, we're talking about under 6%, 5%, somewhere in that range of all the spending in the state. So even if you made these shifts and we didn't have any of those, which you can't, you do have to have leadership at the central offices, we're not going to save the amount of money that will provide taxpayers with substantial relief. So the senator's plan is focused on the governance part, and the supervisory unions that are established in there they are located on the map where our historic academies are. So this part of the Senate plan would protect choice for students in those communities to be able to still attend those private academies. Do you want to add anything about the governance?
I think the only thing I'd add, and Lisa, you can correct me if I don't have this quite right, we were referring to these 3 plans, the governor's plan, the House plan, and Senator Bongart's plan. They're all going to be going through the same bill number, so it's a little confusing to watch. And it's Bill H-454. The governor doesn't introduce legislation, but he got somebody to introduce legislation for his plan under that number. The committee said, thank you to the governor, we're going to take this as the vehicle to continue the discussion, and they basically take everything that the governor put in there and start from scratch with the same number. My suspicion is that when it goes to the Senate, whatever the changes are that they want to make, they're going to use that same vehicle, and they're going to say, okay, House, we don't like what you did here, we're going to throw ours in. So we're kind of referring to 3 different plans, but it's all going to be the same bill.
It is confusing if you go and search for it. I will tell you what the governor's plan is, like 190-ish pages. House plan, right now is 50-something pages, and Senator Bongart's, it is not, like Morgan said, it's not bill form yet, but it's I think 2 pages in what he is describing.
But for governance, the big picture is the governor wants 5 districts, the House wants 20 and wants somebody else to draw the lines, and the Senate, or a senator, wants 9 districts and 3 of them as SUs to protect that.
So the lines
Choice.
in the map that we got the email to are the current proposed districts. The current subdivision of districts.
5? Is that what
No,
you're talking about?
the newest one that had
9.
us including the Northeast Kingdom, like all the way across the other side of the
That's
state.
the plan that this senator has proposed.
So our current map, it shows our 52 supervisory unions.
Right. I just was looking at the numbers. Like I think we're like 10,000. Like that new line we would be like 10,000. But as you go through the rest of the state, there's some that are like significantly less within those proposed districts, including like the Northeast Kingdom, which I don't understand. Like someone doesn't know Vermont, like why they would draw a line to not include those counties that are already part of that Northeast Kingdom, but include it in this northern area. So I was just, it doesn't, if we're looking at like numbers, I'm just trying to figure out why it's not equal. Why the lines proposed are not equal in numbers.
I don't know that we can answer that because
Yeah.
we don't really know the rationale behind why they're choosing what they're choosing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some of them are looking at what are the current boundaries of certain systems, and some might be looking at the benefits related to are they operating or not operating. I mean, that far eastern little
Yeah.
corner of the state is geographically really isolated, and that's where Canaan is up there, and there's always a lot of
Right.
conversation about Canaan, so I don't know why Senator Bongar's plan did not put them in the north. I don't know what that part was other than the choice piece of it. I think that right now, there's choice in that part of the state, and I think that
They're trying to
the supervisor union structure, I think the intention would be to
maintain
protect that.
choice.
So
Yeah,
I
gotcha.
suspect that this plan was drawn with that in mind.
Okay. It was just so like I looked at it, I'm like, this is very confusing. I don't see any kind of like like
It's
we're looking at
rational.
equity here, but we're like one of the largest of all those districts our district would be. And our population is I feel like more more diverse in terms of need than some of those other districts or funding resources as well. So it just was like, it seems askew.
I think those are things to keep in mind so that
Yeah.
if that starts to move forward, those are questions you could ask your legislator or your legislators.
Yeah.
Right? You could say I have concerns because of X, Y, or Z. Oh, Lisa?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to caution people not to get too hung up on the maps, because they are absolutely going to change between now and when they're drawn. And even the people the people drawing the maps have changed drastically in the last several weeks. So, I would just caution people to do as Lynn asked and contact your legislator about what you like or don't like, and then have them give that input. There are several different forums for people to be giving input to the actual committees that are working on this, and if your likes and dislikes get conveyed, then that's important for you, but try not to get too hung up on what the maps look like right now, because they're not gonna stay. I mean, as it is, we've got 2 or 3 different maps that we're all working off from. So there's no like final draft right now to really look at, even though there's one in the Senate that appears to be what the senators like. It's still gonna have to get compromised on.
And I think your advice, Lisa, will be true for everything else we're going to say. So our task tonight was really just to update where are we in this moment in time, and recognizing that it's important information for you to have, and the next time we speak it's going to be different. And where we land in the end is going to be different. So we're gonna do our best to keep you informed of where we are in restraints in time as we move forward. So I think the next thing I'll shift to, and we've already talked a little bit about this, is class size. So we have been working with you on class size. The first time we brought the class size discussion to you was back in October. We did a presentation just kind of sharing with you what does the education quality standards say around class size. And that, when we talked about that, just as a reminder, that is really written around maximums. So K through 3, on average, you'll have class sizes under 20. In grades 4 through 12, you'll have class size averages of under 25. That's what our ed quality standards say. Currently in Vermont, we all have to set our own class size policies, and there have not been minimums that we have had to hold ourselves to. So we have had minimum averages in our own class size policy that we've come up with, and we give a report to the board every year. So in our average class size cluster, K through 2, literacy and math is 10. K through 2, all other subjects are 12. 3 through 6, math and literacy, 12. Other subjects, 14. 7 and 8, all except PE is 14. In the high school, PE is 20. 9-12 music is 15. 9-12 general classes, 16. 9-12 special courses, 14. And tech center classes, 10. So again, there's no accountability for that now, because we get to set the policy report out and we get to average those classes together. In what the governor put forth, he had pointed to class sizes that align to the PICUS report that we reported to you about in October. So K through 3 at a minimum of 15, and 4 through 12 with a minimum of 25. In the House plan that they are moving through, minimums for kindergarten would be 12, grades 1 through 4 would be 15, grades 5 through 12 would be 18, and they have left some nuance for special courses like CTE courses, courses that require use of equipment, I'm assuming like a foods course or something like that, advanced placement, special ed, intervention, emerging multilingual classes, so there is some nuance there. And as we talked about before, Senator Baumgart's plan doesn't address anything related to class size, only district governance. Morgan, you want to take the next one?
Sure. The governor's plan pretty dramatically shifted the, I'd say, balance of power between the agency and the State Board of Ed, moving a lot of the duties of the State Board of Ed over to the agency. The House has taken that out, and I believe in the version that's passed, they've got some proposed changes to how the State Board is nominated, how those positions are nominated. Historically, the governor has made all of the appointments to the State Board. The House has proposed changing that slightly to give the legislature some authority to elect, to nominate seats. There is also a bill that comes up every year that would move the Agency of Education back to a Commission of Education, which takes it less directly out of the governor's control. House Ed took some testimony on that early in the session, and I've not heard anything more about it since then, so I suspect that that is not going to go anywhere.
So I think there, just to add on to that, I think there's some concern about the amount of authority that would fall under the agency and be taken away from the state board. And one of the things when I think as the leader here, one of my worries is because we have the situation where the governor appoints the secretary is a member of the cabinet, the governor currently appoints the state board, and if you think about everything that falls on from rulemaking to everything else that the agency is responsible for, I worry that in, a shifting, if we get a new governor that has a really different belief about education, we could see some pendulum swings as a result of that, because everything is so closely tied to the governor's authority under our current plan and what's proposed. So I will talk about statewide calendar. So under the governor's plan and the House plan, there is work that they're hoping to do that the agency could do to do several things. One is agree upon a statewide calendar. I don't remember the timeline for that. Is it 27? It was either 26, 27, or 27, 28. And also preparing for the merger of districts. Like these are not, these systems that we have in Vermont do not change, like turn on a dime. And we've experienced that when Sheldon became a part of Franklin Northeast. there is a whole lot on the back end that has to happen when you take one entity out of an existing organization and put them into another. So there's a lot of work that has to happen in preparation for any of those governance or school changes. So another task that they would have to do with the agency is come up with a statewide financial system and a statewide student information system. And that would need to be rolled out before we start making these significant shifts together. So those would be large tasks for the agency.
28, 29 would be the first year the calendar's live.
Okay. And then the other piece that I don't have on that list is statewide graduation expectations. So I don't have clarity about what kind of process that will go through. Is there anything that I missed? I've only been able to skim the final copy of the House bill. Was there any clarity, Morgan, about process for that? Is that falling under the agency in the House bill?
The SIS,
No, the graduation requirements.
I don't know.
Just know that's one piece that they're also leaning towards.
July 1, 2027, adopt standards for statewide proficiency graduation requirements.
Can you talk about the yield bill and the foundation funding?
Yeah, so the yield bill is kind of the normal bill that we used to care the most about back when things were calmer. The yield that we presented to the voters was $8,553. The current yield bill, which is just passed the House, I believe, today and is on its way to the Senate, is a little bit higher, $85.96. Higher yield drives tax rates down, so it looks like at the moment taxes will be a little bit lower than what we presented to the voters in March. Obviously, that has a long way to go through the Senate and then through any reconciliation between the two chambers, and then it has to be signed by the governor. The yield bill, the House did accept the governor's proposal to use $77 million in one-time funding to help buy down tax rates this year. So that's currently in there. And then in terms of the foundation formula bill, that is working its way through House Ways and Means this week. It will likely get lumped into that H454, the big education bill, so I think eventually you'll see it there. What this would do would move us from a situation where we build a budget and if it's passed, ask for a certain amount of money from the state to where they say, based on the number of kids you have, here's the money that you get to run your schools for the next year. This is a system, I think we said before, probably 46 other states have something at least close to that. There will be a provision, or I expect there will be a provision for districts who want to spend more than that amount. Spent a lot of time debating today about how that would work. The current House Ways and Means version has a mechanism whereby districts who choose to spend more than that foundation amount will also be raising some money to go into a construction reserve fund, which is a fund that we've known for 20 years we need to get back to, and no one's come up with a way to fund it. So it'll be interesting to see if that survives its path through the Senate.
The only other thing that we didn't talk about was school size, and I know that's not on my list, but our current reality is we have, we were looking today at the list of schools in the state, and it has a data sheet that has all of this, and we have schools in Vermont that vary in size from under 40 to over 1,000. So in the governor's plan, he did not address school size, and I suspected they were going to because of what was recommended in the PICUS report. So although they did not in his plan talk about school size, they did talk about the financial viability, meeting those minimum class size standards. and being able to meet the quality assurances. So I've been able to have some conversations with Secretary Saunders about that, and what they're saying is you need to be financially viable, so you can't meet the financially viable by just stripping all the opportunities away from your kids, because you won't be able to meet the quality piece. So it's financially feasible, which is connected to scale, class size, minimums, and quality. So although they did not use the term school closure or consolidation, they used instead the term Vermont School Portfolio for 28-29. So I think there's an acknowledgement that throughout this process, we're gonna have to look at scale in the schools as well. The House Ed plan that they moved through did not have anything about scale for grades pre-K through 5 schools, but for 6 through 12, they said an average daily membership of at least 450 students. So that's in the House plan, and there's nothing that was addressed in Senator Monhart's plan about that. And is there anything else that you think we should cover tonight?
I think so. It's all changing tomorrow.
Okay. Any questions from board members?
So many, just no time.
Mary, was that you?
All right, thank you so much. Lynn, you have anything else?
Yes.
Oh, you do, a little bit,
We do.
okay.
So we're gonna talk about a negotiations update. Morgan, we didn't talk about, I'll jump in. Do you wanna split them, or do you wanna?
It's up to you.
All right, I'll start with support staff. So we've had 3 really productive meetings with our support staff union in terms of new money. In the first round, the union proposed a 2-year contract worth 11.7% in year 1 and 7.2% in year 2. The board proposed a 3-year contract worth 2.9%, 2.0%, and 1.9% each year. In the second round, the union reduced their proposal to 11.3 and 7.2%, and the board increased theirs to 3.8, 3, and 3 over 3 years. In the third round, the union proposed 9.1% and 6.5%, and the board countered with 5, 4.3, and 4.1, and the union recountered with 7.8 and 5.5. In terms of language, the union and the board have tentative agreements with over half the articles in our collective bargaining agreement. The major remaining points of discussion, other than money, are related to the number of leave days and the micro-credentialing program. So our next meeting with our support staff will be on April 14th. Any questions on support staff? So for teachers, do you want me to start, or do you want to do this?
So you kind of took the happier one. We've met with teachers 3 times as well. The board's first proposal was for 2 years, giving steps and adding to the base new money equivalent of 3.1% in year 1 and 2.2% in year 2. The union's proposal was also for 2 years. It included an increased base, changes to the amounts for the steps and columns on the grid, the addition of an M45 column, the far end of the grid, and then additional column movements for nurses and guidance counselors, and additional steps for a group of teachers who have been in the district for a long period of time. The new money has been hard to calculate for the teachers, in part because there's a new column and we don't really know who's going to be over there, and we're having to make some guesses on what teachers are going to get extra steps under this proposal. As best we can tell, the new money just for the grid piece is about 13.4% in year 1 and 8.8% in year 2, but I would look at that as a minimum. In the second meeting, the
Can I
board.
add to that, Maria?
Yes.
So what Maureen's trying to say is that several of the other asks are attached to money, but we don't understand them clearly enough to be able to put a dollar figure to them to be able to report out like what's the total new money. So what we just gave you for percentages was only around the salary and
In the second meeting, the board increased their offer to 3.1% and 3.3% of new money. The union put forward a proposal that did not have any change to the money offer. In the third meeting, the union put forward a new money proposal. At first, it appeared to be an increase in the amount of money they asked. I'm trying to remember that's you or that one. There was a lot of back and forth with the union about the grid they presented, and they corrected it a few times that evening, and we sort of got the final one the next morning. So we think that they came down with this proposal, again, to a minimum of 12.1% in year one and 7.3% in year two in terms of new money. There were a lot of differences in terms of the language between the two proposals. Kind of the short list, the board had proposed a 188-day work year, which would be an increase of 1 day. The union proposed restrictions to the principal's ability to reassign teachers. There's new language around following OSHA requirements that has not been in there before. They wanted a longer time to return contracts once they were offered. They moved 2 professional development days from controlled by the principals and superintendent to controlled by the teachers in terms of the content. They wanted to shorten the workday from 8 hours to 7.5 hours. There's a lot of additional payment for professional responsibilities, such as parent meetings, which are currently part of their regular contract, and that's where the challenge is coming into really finding out what the proposal would be asking for new money, because we now have to pay them for some of those times that we don't really track right now. Longer lunch period, additional compensation for time spent out of school, and then higher payments for buyback of retirement, sick days and retirement pay. The next meeting with them is scheduled for April 15th, so the day after we meet with support staff next.
Any questions, comments on that? Okay. How about we end with a little bit of fun?
Deal.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was for
I'd
doodling.
love for everybody to take a piece of paper, and if you need a pencil, pass those around.
We're not
So-
jumping over a bonfire. No jumping over a bonfire.
I'll
Says-
totally jump
says
over a
who?
bonfire if it means warm weather.
So I will need you to continue to present. So I just want to say, it is Cognia testing time. Okay?
Sorry?
It's Cognia.
We have to have pencils.
VT cap. You can use a pen if you so choose.
The
So
second,
all of our students in the supervisory union are currently taking the VT cap assessment. It's called the Cognia assessment. So only go to slide 7 for now. Okay. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at some of the released sample questions and see the kind of questions that our students experience on these assessments. I'm gonna make sure that no one is going to be forced to show their work publicly. You don't have to talk about your answer, that's not the most important part. But I am gonna give you a minute to work through some of these, and then we're gonna play a game. And I'm going to ask you, what grade level do you think this is measuring? Because there's a lot of conversation about how our students do on these assessments, and I think there are some misconceptions around what our students are learning. I know what our students are learning now is very different than when, I'm getting up there in age, so it's very different than the level and complexity of what I learned at those same grade levels. So we're gonna start off with a math problem. We go to the next one, Courtney. Can everybody see that? Do you want me to read it?
No, yeah, I'm good.
This grid shows one of Clorinda's bedroom walls. The top of the wall is shaded, the rest of the wall is unshaded. Which expression can be used to find the total area of the wall? Is it A, 2 times 8 plus 9, B, 2 times 8 plus 10, C, 9 times 2 plus 9 times 8, or D, 10 times 9 plus 2 times 9?
It's at least 5.
Give Lee more time.
It's not gonna help with any more time.
Can I ask a
Okay.
question?
Yes.
So, is the point that they're supposed to like try each answer?
That's not the script, sorry, kid.
Yeah, yeah.
What's, I'm sorry?
I can't help it. It's
They
not part
can't
of the
ask
script.
questions.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah, I don't know, I'm so curious if that's the point of the test, is that they're supposed to test out each answer, or are they supposed to automatically know the answer?
The point is they have scrap paper.
Mm-hmm,
We can't tell them the point of any question. They have to figure out what they think the answer is to this.
okay.
So my exercise is not to call you out about getting the right answer. I'm not actually gonna ask you for your answers. But I am gonna ask you to give me a thumbs up if you are super confident that you got the right answer. Okay. What about if you're a little not so sure?
Yeah.
You don't- okay. So, not gonna give you the answer.
What?
What do you mean, what?
What grade level do you think this is?
Wait, we don't get the answer after all of this?
Yeah, I want an answer
No, we
too.
need to know the answer.
That's
I
right.
mean,
I'll
If you're
send it
getting-
to you later. I did not do these problems. I cut and pasted right before I came.
I'm so confused, well, this is so important.
Okay. We'll make sure.
What's the shaded part have it to do with it?
So, okay, Emily said 6th grade.
You need to take a break.
Absolutely.
It's fifth answer.
Send me out the room.
Okay, what do you think?
3 or 4.
3rd or 4th?
Yeah, first was this.
What do other people think? You're thinking it's 3rd? You have a
I mean,
guess?
it's kind of algebraic, so 7th.
7th grade? This is a sample equation from grade 3. This is what our 3rd graders are doing, right? Okay.
Wow.
Now, here is your next
Yeah, I agree.
next
But-
one.
She didn't even give us the answer.
Oh, I know.
Is it blank
I
on
got so
yours?
many more questions on like what.
When you get the
yeah,
answer.
I mean, what is?
Okay, Kathy bought 2 5/6 pounds of strawberries at a grocery store. She kept 1 1/4 pounds and gave the rest to Ricardo. How many pounds of strawberries did Kathy give to Ricardo?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Kathy would never buy a fraction. She would buy whole numbers only. I know her.
Oh, yeah, so then I give the rest of it. So you kept a third, so. 2, 4, 6. Gosh.
It's a 5, 2 and 5, 6 is what that says?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I don't know how to do that.
Beep. Time's up.
Okay.
That microphone closer.
Where's
Alright.
my son when I
FC,
need
or-
him?
how are people feeling about this one?
Good.
Some
My
things
phone a
in this
friend.
that are, yeah, they're a little tricky to remember if you haven't used fractions for a while. What grade level do we think this is? See, 4, 5,
5.
5, 4. This is an example of a 5th grade practice. Okay, are we ready?
1 and 7. You have to make a common
I
denominator.
didn't know how to get there, but I.
Okay, here's your next equation.
It's killing me.
Triangle.
Oh, that's how you keep looking at me. I'm like,
Triangle EFG is reflected across the x-axis and dilated by a scale factor of half about the origin to form triangle EFG. Which ordered pair describes the location of vertex E?
what?
I flunked geometry. I really did. I did okay the second time. I'm not gonna go anywhere with this. No. Isn't there like a calculator? Where's my Texas instrument?
I can't see it.
Which one are you trying to say at the bottom?
I'm trying to see.
Divided by a scale.
So triangle EFG is reflected across the
I'm in pain.
x-axis and dilated by a scale factor of half about the origin to form the triangle EFG.
This is cruel and unusual
Which ordered
punishment.
pair describes the location of vertex E?
Do you know the answer? You're looking it up.
I can't really see it. I can't see
Okay, what is your guess in terms of grade level?
Well, my guess is 7.
High school?
8th, high school?
This is 8th or less?
No, I think.
This is 8th grade or less,
It
right?
could be up through high school.
It could be high school. It should be high school.
It should be high school.
I guess for the answer is not even an option, so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so this is 8th grade math. Okay?
Still got my chops.
Our camera gal got it right in the corner. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example from science. I promise I'll send you the answers.
I'm gonna have a chance.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
So, before we go to the science one, I didn't choose a literacy one because it would have been pages and pages. Kids have to read substantial text and answer multiple questions, but I'll tell you how you can get there. So this is an example of a science problem that someone might face. I'll give you a moment to read that. People need me to read that out loud. You want me to read the one on the right? The student uses 3 models to show how changes in mass and distance affect the gravitational force between a rocket and Earth. The table shows the masses and the distances of objects in the models. And then it shows 3 models and a diagram for each of the models. And then on the bottom left, you've got the gravitational force equation. And then Courtney's gonna go to the next page. This is the question, has 2 parts. Students have to answer both parts. In part B, it's a drop down, and the options are 1/4, 1/2, twice, and 4 times.
I'm staying.
I think the answer's 42.
Oh.
Jerry, you want me to go back?
Looking at both.
And
I don't
I'm
remember
one of
the
those kids that
question.
says, I'm not
So-
doing anymore.
I think the moral of the story is, it's okay if you don't get to the answer. What grade science do you think this is?
10. 3rd.
Did you say this? Did you say this was gonna be fun?
I think it's, this is grade 11.
Oh, good. I feel better.
So I showed you this because there's a narrative. that I'd like to interrupt. I hear people talk about Vermont students and test scores. I think I would like to just take a moment to sit with this and say, these are the kinds of assessments our students are taking. So when people out there are saying that our students aren't doing well, our students are engaging with some really complex problems. Like these are not what people may be recalling from when they were in 3rd grade. I don't know if any of you were doing that level of work when you were in 3rd grade. So the standards have increased significantly for our students, and I just want that reflected. So when people say to you, what about your outcomes? We're still working to improve upon our outcomes. We're not happy with where we are. But our students are really smart, and they're working really hard, and they're doing really hard things. And I want to change the narrative a little about that, because I think it's so important to interrupt that when we hear it, because I think I can't tell you the answers because I don't know all the answers, right? Like this is something that we would have to work through to make sure that we got it right. I certainly wouldn't want to give you an answer on camera and be wrong, and then have like the whole, are you smarter than a fifth grader out there? So I hope that you found some usefulness in seeing some of this, and I think that you can go on online and you can look up sample tests for Cognia or VT-CAP, and I think if you have people kind of saying those things, point them in that direction and ask them to take a minute to take the 3rd grade practice test in literacy or in math, or take the 5th grade science practice test, and then maybe they'll have a different perspective.
I think it'd be great in one of your newsletters to put those links in there and say, here, see what you can do.
Somebody else recommended that to me, and I don't know if I can do that. Like I've got to ask.
Yeah.
I've got to ask.
Yeah,
if
because
that's
that'd be pretty
allowable.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, because I know there's another assessment, and I don't know what it was, because, yes, it escaped from my daughter, and she just said, one of the things that she found really hard as a teacher is the kids who do well, it keeps jumping them up. So I think it was a math, I'm not sure.
Exalted.
Yeah, and she said they get frustrated because the next time they take it to this, that it starts them up at those hard ones. And she said, these poor kids look at it and go, wait a minute, I had some easy ones. Or she said the other direction, if a kid misses something, it drops them down. And it's, yeah. So
Those are the computer adaptive tests.
Yeah.
That's purposeful so that you can keep everyone around their learning
yes,
edge.
which I can understand, but as someone taking it, I'm thinking that could be terribly frustrating, or it could be very much going, oh my goodness, I'm a dummy, and I've gone back to, just what we put kids through.
The good news is, even if they get a few wrong, it will continue to get increasingly more hard again.
Yeah, but it's kind of like they're
Those kids, yeah.
starting over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a big part of our, even our SEL is this whole test taking possibility of, okay, remember this is just to help us know where you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really reflect on who you are.
Right. And I think we have to work on that, and at the same time, we have to help students to understand that this is really an opportunity for them to show us, there's feedback again, to show us what they know, because these aren't tests that just are taken and they're put on a shelf. These are tests, so when we talk about that Tuesday time, our teachers are looking at those STAR assessments that you're talking about, and they're sorting those assessments and saying, these students need this skill, and here's how we're gonna intervene, and they're planning for all of that, so
And
there's a lot
I think
behind
that
the
also
scenes.
speaks to why these intervention positions and the special ed positions are so important, because, okay, now we have this group of kids who needs this specific, and we can now put them in that wing group to work on this specific.
Or the teacher can do it during the
Yes,
classroom
right,
time
yeah.
as well. So, any comments about that fun exercise?
Great activity.
I'm so glad I'm done school.
No kidding, right?
7/12 of a strawberry.
And I used to love
No,
those
you have to be very precise.
I never.
That's all it has to
I have a question. Do you think it'd be cool if we like low
Turning
key
it back to you,
coordinated
Mary.
our outfits
Yeah.
for the next meeting?
Yes.
Like even the black shoes, I'll be completely honest with you. I almost walked out the door with my orange fleece.
Mary, can you hear us?
Really, really close, and I was like, it's not that cold out. If it was a little bit colder, I was gonna wear it. That would have been
Mary?
super, super weird, but it was that close.
I don't know why.
Do you have a chaperone
Thank-
like this? She is.
Thanks, Lynn. That was very
I'll
humbling.
bring it extra.
Your choice of words, Mary.
Excellent, excellent. Really, that was a really excellent exercise. Thanks. So Lynn, that was it for you, eh? You're
That is
all
it.
set?
All set.
Okay, so we're moving on to our principal reports. Kevin, anything you'd like to highlight or update from your report?
I just real quickly to add a little bit to Lynn. I was going to talk about some other things, but the level of frustration that you could see even in here with behaviors. I heard swearing. I heard grunts. I heard wanting more, and so you just can imagine the students, right, as they're feeling this, and then Mary, you came on and said a humbling experience, and so our teachers, to be able to teach this level, and then to really work hard. I mean, our teachers are working so hard, and you can imagine. We talk about a teacher burnout. The level has been risen to such a level to be able to teach all of our students as they're being a little bit naughty. It just makes it difficult, and so I just appreciate that activity, Lynn. That was really nice to see, and just to always keep in mind our teachers and our students as they're working through this. So real quickly for us, we had we did a math and Cliff night. We had about 100, just over 100 parents and people involved, which was fantastic. So that was really nice. And then the other thing I was just going to mention was the volleyballs at the school is going great. And I had an opportunity even tonight we went down to the city school and watched them play. And my wife and I went down, and I just was saying to myself, we're giving 13, I think there's 13 total kids, there was a couple missing today, an opportunity to do something in the month of March that wouldn't have had anything to do. And so it's been fantastic. And I know that number is going to probably double next year because we only have one 8th grader on it. And so, and I see a lot of 7th and 6th graders coming to the games when they're at home. And you can see that desire to want to be a part of something, part of a team with the Bobcat across your shirt. So that's always great. So that's all for me. Over to Mr. Gavin.
I didn't want to, there's not, probably the biggest thing just is to piggyback on what Kevin shared as well. Obviously, this month is going to be really dominated by VT-TAP testing. Our testing is starting next week. And I think we've definitely seen a lot of that stress, even in terms of recently just even behaviors. And I think some of that is just stemming from the teachers are shifting towards making sure that there's building familiarity with the test. And I think the students to a degree also feel that stress. And it's just been important just to remind the students that although I want them to take it seriously, I also don't want them to lose sleep over it either. And really all that we're asking is that they complete the test with fidelity, they do their best, because these are scores that can help us see where their needs are and also see where our overall school's needs are in terms of instruction. I think once we get through that big round of high stakes testing, I think we probably are going to see a little bit of a return to equilibrium. But I think for the next few weeks, it's just going to be. I know that at least at Berkshire, we've been putting a lot of attention towards making sure that our students are not surprised by the test in terms of its format, what's being asked, but also making sure that we're supporting the SEL needs of our students as well to make sure that they're able to find that balance as well, and really turning it into a learning experience of how to navigate situations where you can feel stress and you can sort of come across those. I'm not sure if I would just say even high stakes testing, but just high stakes performance expectations.
Well, we started our Cognia right as the window opened, so we are almost done. We have testing tomorrow and then next Tuesday and Wednesday, and we are done with minimal makeups because we've been doing the makeups along the way. So we're feeling that sense of we're almost there. And then what I wanted to share with everyone and remind everyone is that our annual Shakespeare performances will be next Thursday and Friday. Well worth the visit to Montgomery, 6 o'clock. The play is always amazing. They're funny, they're Shakespeare's kind of parodies, so they're comical, and the kids always rise to the occasion. So I invite all of you to join us next week on Thursday or Friday evening.
Sheldon's update. We have parent-teacher conferences or student-led conferences on the 16th and 17th. So I've been the past week and a half seeing in the building kids putting things in their folders to be able to share. It's really cool. Even kindergartners, I happened to walk in the room today and they were putting things in folders that they want to share with their parents. So I'm really excited for that. And in conjunction, Julie Cattell, our STEM teacher that did our presentation at last Sheldon's thing, her and I have been talking about since the beginning of the year doing a STEM fair, and so our 7th graders have stepped up to bat. So as part of the student-led conference night in our gym will be all their projects, and they'll be manning some of those their tables some of those 2 nights to share out. So if you can get to Sheldon on the 16th or 17th between 3:30 and 7:30, there will be tables of the 7th grade STEM projects, and a lot of them took a big problem and tried to create a solution and then do the engineering design process to model it and test it and redo it. So we're really starting to build this program, and the kids are really excited to share and very nervous to share their projects at our first annual STEM fair. So
Did you say the 16th and 17th?
16th and 17th, so Wednesday and Thursday, they're right before break.
If we're looking at inviting the board, we have a middle school dance on Friday.
You already had your turn.
I know somebody I could really embarrass myself.
You all are more than welcome to come.
Maybe I'll send her
And if
grandfather.
you can't make it, it will be part of Sheldon's Spotlight in June. We'll have some probably clips or photos or something from it, and I'm going to try to get a couple of the 7th graders to come and present in June. We'll see. That's our goal.
I just want to add one thing before we close too. It just occurred to me too that, here we are, all very good readers, very good. If you have problems reading or learning disability, man, that
I
slams
was
you.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
What I didn't show you, and you can see it if you go online, is that there are tools that are accessible, and teachers and administrators work and identify if there are accommodations that need to be in place for certain kids. So they're able to, in some cases, turn on like the text-to-speech. What are some of the other examples?
There's lots of things. Color
Highlighting.
fonts to.
Yeah.
it's
They
all-
can highlight things, they can
Yeah.
bookmark things, come back to it after they've had some time to think about it.
I still think that
It is.
I can't imagine
Then
But
no
you
one
have
had
to
to
be
use them.
you have to be able to utilize
Yeah.
them.
You
though.
didn't
Yeah,
know how
That's
to.
another
exactly.
Well, it's measuring something else that is nobody talks about. Is everything's on the computer.
Oh, yeah?
And it is not, if you go in and do the practice test, it's not super intuitive. There are instructions for, like on the practice test, it would not let me skip one and go to the next one. So I think that's the
You have to
bookmark
flag
thing.
it.
Yeah, you have to know how to use those
Well,
tools.
it's
So
just a child's level of perseverance, Okay, I'm done.
And they're not supposed to talk.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
a breach of
Of
test
course not.
security.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, everyone. That brings us back to our board business. Anyone have future agenda items? I know we talked, Lynn, about the calendar piece for the SU meeting, but anything specific to our next NMV meeting, which will be on May 7th at Montgomery?
I was at the online thing with the lawyer, sorry, I forget her name. Maybe you could just give an update on how that's going, any policy changes?
yeah.
I know I'm not on the policy committee. but-
Yeah, I think we'll start with the policy. I could do some updates on federal changes. Some of the things that we're navigating, we talked about the state tonight, we didn't talk about the federal. So we can maybe do that next time. Thank you
I
for
didn't
jumping
quite
in.
catch that, I'm afraid.
I'm gonna add an update about some of the federal issues that we're contending with as well, some of those changes.
Sure. Yeah, bless you. That makes sense. Okay. Anything else tonight, folks? All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, take care all.
Night.